I'm just going to record this if that's okay with you guys. We have some people missing and might be able to post that. So what did you find interesting about these two Psalms? There's some things that I want us to look at, but I don't want my interest to overshadow what we want to talk about together. So what do you find interesting? What do you find challenging? What do you find confusing?
Well, Psalm 2 definitely reads like a messianic psalm.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Um, I don't really have my overhead camera working, but if I put Nestle Alarm up, it's quoted in the New Testament as a messianic psalm. So um, we're on good ground there. But even in the wording itself in Psalm 2, Psalm 2:2 says the kings. Can you guys see that? Okay, the kings of the earth have stood themselves together, and the A-listers. That's how I'm doing this word. Are counseled together against the Lord, and you see. And we can just put up the ESV here. Let me just make it a tad bigger. Against the Lord and against his anointed. But notice that word anointed is actually the word Messiah. And you could translate it that way. In fact, I think that's how we should translate it. Against the Lord and against his Messiah. And if you translate it against his Messiah, then clearly this is going to be a messianic psalm. So,
I noted that about the word anointed in the ESV, it's capitalized.
oh yeah, so they're probably suggesting that it's um, whenever you read through the Hebrew Bible and it talks about anyone being anointed, like Aaron, any person like that, the word that appears is this word. So you kind of you have to decide: do you want to do it like? Uh, do you want to say Messiah, or do you want to say anointed, or do you want to say anointed and do it in all capitals? Um, Wonderful little uh, translation tool here where you can see all the translations together, and you can see all of these first major ones are doing capitals. The NLT doesn't, and the ASV doesn't. Um, the King James doesn't. God's word actually does against his Messiah. Um, Good news against the king. That seems like I'm not as happy with that. His anointed king, the NET. New King James capitalize. RSV not capitalized. The Septuagint against his Christ. And if we just take time to look up the Septuagint, you can see that's exactly how the Septuagint does it against his Christ. So, is it a messianic psalm? We can look at other reasons. I think there's a great prima facie case that it is. I mean, the word there, and I'm just looking at Nestle Aland here, and it's quoted in Acts 2:27, and I think there it's presented. I think that's Peter, and he's presenting it as a messianic psalm, and Acts 4:25, and there's another reference 24:5. Maybe we just take a minute to look that up. You can never go wrong when you look up. So these are all from Nestle Lawn, and we'll just punch that in, Acts 24:5. And if we link it up with the ESV, this is why do the nations rage? So that's probably not. So maybe Acts 4:25. 4:25. The Father of us, through the Holy Spirit, through the mouth of David his servant, saying, and then we have the verbatim quote, why do the nations rage and the people care about emptiness? The kings of the earth have taken their stand, and the archons, the ruling ones, are gathered together for the same purpose, against the Lord and against his Christ. And so the assumption there by Peter is that absolutely this is a messianic psalm, and is even using it in arguing. So what else do you find interesting?
Dr. Davis,
Yes.
does that mean so if
Your microphone cut out.
sorry, it's nice I have a new laptop so I can have Zoom and Logos running at the same time now.
Isn't that cool?
It's incredible. What a blessing.
I should show you guys my setup. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monitors going. So I don't know. My name's Judd. I've got a technology problem. I've been clean and sober about 0.7 of 1 second. So,
But if I hadn't considered that, can we take that as authoritative that David wrote these Psalms, or at least Psalm 1, since there's no, subtitle for one,
there's no
noting that he did.
there's no subtitle in 1. Books 1 and 2, the vast majority of them are attributed to David. The very last psalm in book 2 of the Psalter is attributed to Solomon, but at the end of that, it has this statement. There's a parallel statement at the end of all the books of the Psalter, and you can tell that this is where the cutoff is. And it says books 1 and 2 are the prayers of David. Now, the standard critical view is that Psalm 1 and 2 were added later. So critical scholars are confident that Psalm 1 and 2 are added later. But critical scholars are confident that, there are multiple sources in the Pentateuch, that Daniel didn't write Daniel, that there's no prophecy before the event. And for me, the fact that Peter, inspired by the Spirit, attributes the psalm to David, even though there's no preface alluding to that, I'm gonna go with Peter. I know the arguments that people use about, this psalm can't be written. Usually those are very technical, and they'll involve things like, the Hebrew is too late or something like that. It's been my absolute experience that the people who make those arguments are utterly incompetent in Hebrew. I've met so many people, so many scholars, sometimes even world-class scholars, and they'll say, I don't, read Greek anymore, or I don't really read Hebrew anymore. And you ask them, have you ever read through the whole thing? I've never read through the whole thing. Well, somebody like that is worthless, in my opinion, if they're a scholar and they haven't even read through the Hebrew Bible one time. I think we should volume read the Greek New Testament and the Hebrew Old Testament. So I'm not convinced of those arguments. I would say it's the higher scholarly consensus that they were added later. I just don't buy it. All the collections we have of the Psalms include Psalm 1 and 2, and they're at the beginning. They never appear anyplace else. So there's no manuscript evidence that they were added later. And we do have the positive statement of Peter that it was written by David. So that's where I land. What else do you find interesting?
I thought it was interesting. Just the same word comes up twice in Psalm 1, I think verse 2. I think it's
Oh, I'm glad you
Hagah.
walk us through it.
Well, I'll do my best with my 2.5-year-old sitting here.
That may be a future scholar runs circles around all of us.
Yeah, we'll
One
see.
day.
That or golf. He's more into golf
E-
right now,
e-
but
Either one.
yeah.
It wouldn't take much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, definitely to surpass me in either field there wouldn't be very hard. Uh, well, in verse 2 in chapter 1, the word meditates, I believe, is the word Hagah, which at
It
least
is.
Hallett, whatever the abbreviation there is, saying it could be like coo or groan. But then in chapter 2, verse 1, it comes up again.
It's exactly the same word, isn't it?
Yeah, and so why are the nations restless and the people Hagah in vain? Essentially, there, and so I just thought that was interesting as far as this two psalms being together, one, but also it uses the same word in contrast. I delight in the law of the Lord, but then there's these other wicked people who are plotting against the Lord, and
Laughing, yeah.
yeah. So I
And
just thought that was an interesting.
and to your point, I think there's also a word here. Adonai will mock them. Isn't that the same word? Does not stand in the way of sinners in the seat of scoffers. I guess it's a similar word. It's not the same word, but you do. And here's our Hagah word. You've got the blessed man who meditates day and night on God's Torah, and then you've got these kind of A-listers in the world, and I just know this word from elsewhere that it's a word related to emptiness. So they're meditating on emptiness. The blessed man is meditating on God's Torah, and the kind of A-listers of the world are meditating on emptiness. So that's interesting. What else did you find interesting?
I really enjoyed even Psalm 1, verse 1, the whole blessed is the man who walks not, stands not, sits not.
Yeah,
And even
go on.
even with I was reading, I think you're looking at your outline a few days ago and saw comments on the tenses, and then I really appreciated just as I'm thinking about it, just like how vivid the imagery is of how it's becoming more comfortable where you're walking with them and you're standing with them and then you're sitting with them. So
Right. So it's like what this blessed man has avoided is a lifetime of becoming more comfortable with those who are opposed to God. He's not going to sit with scoffers. He's not going to stand in the way with sinners. He's not going to walk in the counsel of the wicked. Did you find it interesting, or did you notice that there's a word in Psalm 2 that's not written in Hebrew? It's actually written in Aramaic. Kiss the sun. So the normal word for sun, well, you tell me in Hebrew, what is the normal word for sun?
Ben.
Ben.
Benny, right. He said to me, "You are my Benny, my Ben. You are my son." But then in 12, 12 says, "Kiss the son." But that word son actually isn't written in Hebrew. It's written in Aramaic. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but you know the alphabet we learned, it's called square script. Did you know that? And did you know that the alphabet we learned is called square script Aramaic? And so the reason that all Bibles today are written in square script Aramaic is because when Israel went to Babylon, Aramaic became the language they spoke, and so they shifted to use the Aramaic alphabet. And the original Hebrew, like the inscriptions in Hezekiah's tunnel, they aren't written with this font. They're written in Paleo Hebrew. And Paleo Hebrew looks radically different from square script Aramaic. I don't know if the original writing, my hunch is probably yes, that the original font that was used to write it down was Paleo Hebrew. The letters are the same. It's like A, B, C, D. They're exactly the same, but how they actually look is radically different. And it makes me wonder that if this was written in Paleo Hebrew before Aramaic square script was introduced in the exile, it makes me wonder if this would have been actually in a different font. There's no manuscript that has it. There are manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scrolls where, you get the Tetragrammaton written in Paleo Hebrew, and as I understand it, the Samaritan Pentateuch is written in Paleo Hebrew, exact same letters, but different font, if you will. But the word bar is not a Hebrew word. Bar is an Aramaic word. It's the Aramaic word for son. Now, that's probably feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, but questions about that are observations, and the ultimate question is, why do you have a song that the vast majority of it's in Hebrew, but part of it is in Aramaic? What do you do with that? What questions do you have? What maybe?
Why is I don't know. I was hoping you were going to tell us.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a theory, and you tell me whether you like this theory or not. It's absolutely meaningless. It's in a different language. Nothing to see here. Move on.
That's not it. Is it a choice, or could it be a choice to use a word that conveys sonship to a different degree than the Hebrew word for sonship would convey?
Rebel, I think you're asking the right question, and you're starting off with the assumption, if it's written in a foreign language, there's a reason it's written in the foreign language.
Wouldn't that, like, because I remember reading something about um, the dating of the book of Daniel comes into question because there's Aramaic used in Daniel. That
Well, there,
would
there's Aramaic used in Genesis in the story where Jacob and Laban meet and form a covenant. There is a partial verse in Genesis that's in Aramaic. Of course, in Daniel, I think it's 2:4 through. I think it's through 7 is all in Aramaic. The letters in Ezra and Nehemiah are in Aramaic. There's one verse in Jeremiah that's written in Aramaic.
Dr. Davis.
Yes.
I guess before we could decide what it would mean for there to be Aramaic words, like how would we identify which words are Aramaic and which words aren't? For example, like in this passage, how do we highlight the uses of Aramaic versus the uses of Hebrew?
So the kind of the short answer is when I double click on it and pulled it up in Halot. So Halot is Hebrew Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament. So Halot is the standard scholarly multi-volume lexicon for Hebrew. And do you see when it pulled it up, it says beside it ARM? And
Yes.
so if you pull that up, it's going to say it's an Aramaic loan word, meaning this isn't a Hebrew word.
Is there a way to isolate all the Aramaic words at once in a passage?
Well, they don't occur all the time. So, I mean, an easy way to do it is so I typed in list of Aramaic in the Old Testament. So this says Ezra 4:8 through 6:18 is Aramaic. These are letters that are quoted in Ezra. 7:11 through 26. Daniel 2:4. So in 2:4, when it says he spoke to them in Aramaic, when he says Aramaic, it goes into Aramaic and it stays Aramaic through the end of 7. And then with 8:1, it goes back to Hebrew. Genesis 31:47 has two words, which is the name that Laban calls the place. Jacob calls it a different place. And then one verse in Jeremiah 10:11. It's not telling us the psalm word. I'm kind of surprised it's not telling us the psalm word.
Dr. Davis, can I throw out a theory on why it would be in Aramaic?
Okay.
So verse 2, or I guess verse 1, nations. Nations is used to get home, and as we saw in Ezekiel, the nations would be demonstrated as like Gentile nations, so not part of
That's exactly right. That's
the
exactly
Jewish
right.
covenant. So it looks like they would use the Son to say that this Messiah, the Anointed One, is not only Jewish, but would actually have like a relationship to the rest of the kingdoms. Does that make sense?
I think you're thinking about that absolutely rightly. There must be a reason why David chose to write in a different language, a known language to him, but a different language. I mean, if we were having a conversation and all of a sudden Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, and I was talking NRK ein halagos, and then I said, sprachen Sie, there would be a reason for that, would there not? Like you just don't go in and out of foreign languages for no reason. So I think it invites the question, why in the world would David, and, Peter is spelling it out in Acts 4 that this isn't just David, this is David by the power of the Holy Spirit is doing this. Why would he switch to Aramaic? Now you might ask, what is Aramaic? Do you maybe have that question? Like, what can you tell me about Aramaic?
Isn't Aramaic the language of Babylon?
It is. It's actually the lingua franca of the ancient world. So the lingua franca means it's the language everybody speaks, or all educated people speak. Hebrew is kind of the very cloistered language only Jews speak. Aramaic's what everybody speaks. What is the lingua franca today?
English.
It's English. And you can go anywhere in the world and go to an airport counter and start speaking English, and they'll talk to you in English. In fact, you can go anywhere in the world and educated people, anyone who's educated, will be able to speak English. The joke is that somebody who speaks 3 languages is called trilingual, and somebody who speaks 2 languages is called bilingual, and somebody who speaks 1 language is called an American. Did you know that's the joke that people tell? Because it's true.
Yes.
English is the lingua franca, and everybody in the world, I mean, you go to Switzerland and get on the subway, and the signs are in English and German and French, but they're in English. If you go to Italy, the signs are in English and Italian. If you go to Tokyo in the subway, the signs are in Japanese and English. Any educated person anywhere on planet Earth has some facility in English, because English is the lingua franca. Aramaic was the lingua franca of antiquity. And so the reason, and this is back to Avery's question, why parts of Daniel are written in Aramaic is because God wanted some parts of Daniel to be read by every single person. And there are other parts of Daniel that were meant exclusively for Jews. And so that's why we have it in Daniel. In Ezra, the official documents are given in Aramaic because they're legal and binding documents, and they want it to be word perfect. And so that's why in Ezra and Nehemiah, you're going to have the Aramaic letters are written in the original language. There's no obvious reason why David would quote the word son, and notice it's only one time. The first time he uses it, he says, "You're my son." But the second time, he says son, but he uses the Aramaic spelling, not the Hebrew spelling. Now, how many of you would grant me that that's weird? Can you even see that in an English translation?
No.
No. Might it be important?
Yes.
It's something very interesting to think about, isn't it? Like, well, why is it a foreign language? I mean, if we were reading this in English and part of the verse was suddenly in French, we would be compelled, would we not, to ask, why is this part of the verse in French? Let's hang on to that one. I think there's a stunningly beautiful answer. Let's hang on to it for right now. If it were read as a Hebrew word, it is the Hebrew word. If you read it as a Hebrew word, it's actually the Hebrew word pure. So it's the same spelling. So if you didn't read it as an Aramaic word, you could say kiss the pure one. But if it is Aramaic, then it's kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you all perish in the way. We're just looking at stuff right now, okay? Who can tell me anything interesting? And here, let me take myself out of the way. Who can tell me anything interesting about that word? Well, let me ask it this way. Where is that word used elsewhere in both the Old Testament or the New Testament? How could we look that up?
Where is that?
Oh, so warms my heart. Hear your voice, Angelo. How would we do that?
That's about all I got.
Hey, that will go a long way in life. Just take the time to look words up. Matter of fact, we may take time to look up that word "son" in Aramaic, but let's not do it now. Let's do this one. I think it's easy to look it up in the Old Testament. I think the way we would do that is we would just do.
Is that the Septuagint you have open on the left?
It is.
Okay, I was just making sure. Sorry, continue.
So here's all the places it's used. Third Kingdoms, you think, what kind of book is Third Kingdoms? Well, when they did 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, they just called it all kingdoms. So Third Kingdoms is 1st Samuel, I guess is how it would do. It's in Chronicles. You've got the Apocrypha, Tobit. It's used. 4th Maccabees, it's used. Pulls up our Psalm 1. That's always good when it pulls up the one you're starting from. And notice that the end, it's going to pull up to that whole inclusio. Some more uses in the Psalms. A lot of uses in the Psalms, it looks like. if we come to the end of the Septuagint, some use it in Proverbs, it looks like. Ecclesiastes, Job, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach. That's all interesting to me, but I want to know if it's used in the New Testament. And I'm just scrolling. I don't think it automatically looks up the New Testament. Yeah, it goes to Daniel. So it didn't look up the New Testament. I'm sure there's a way to do this. And
You'd probably have to pull up the Greek New Testament and search it in there, wouldn't you?
yes, I mean, that's there has to be an easier way to do it, but I get so frustrated that it's hard to do in Logos that I always go to another tool where it's easier, and that it's probably wrong for me, particularly since I'm trying to help everybody learn Logos. It's hard for me to like go to an easier tool, but I guess I'm a little lazy this way because it's like, man, I'm having to work so hard, and this should be easy. And let me toggle this. This is accordance.
Dr. Davis,
Yes.
if you go out of the book resource that you're using in Logos and you just do a general search for all and copy and paste the term, then it will show you the uses in the New Testament. It's got
That's a great workaround. So you copy this.
copy the text and then just do a general search under all. But you do a search not within the book resource or whatever tool you're using. You just want to go to the left side magnifying glass, click that,
Right.
and then do a general search under all.
And when you do that, it's starting to pull up New Testament ones, and it pulls up Matthew 24.
Yeah.
The one I'm interested in, just from my own reading, is Matthew 5. And do you see here, blessed are the spiritually bankrupt?
Mm.
Can you see that this is plural and this is singular? That seems interesting to me, that, and just because I've studied this before, I know that at the end, blessed are all those taking refuge in him. Well, that's verbatim, right? Blessed are the poverty-stricken in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are all those having put their hope on him. So I don't think we're too far off base if we say there's something in Jesus's Sermon on the Mount that's somehow related to these two Psalms, Psalm 1 and 2. Are you with me? Now, there has to be a way I think I've actually done this search before in Logos. I always do it in the other because I know that if you go here and then do the Bible word study, I know if you go to the end down here to New Testament, and you click on that, that will pull up all the places in the New Testament, and you see it pulled up, the one. So that's kind of a workaround, but I'm certain there's a way to do it where you just go to the resource. And let me just see if I can. I know in accordance, and I'm sure you can do this in Logos. I just don't know how to do it, and I've looked, and it frustrates me that like it isn't really easy. But in the word study, you can search it in the Septuagint and the New Testament, and that's what you want. However you set this up, you want it where when you do a New Testament search, it automatically searches the Septuagint, and you want it set up vice versa, where when you search the Septuagint, it automatically searches the New Testament. And I have my wrong glasses on here, but there's a very easy way to do it. Look up in the Greek Bible, so that's both, and see it pulled up all the Old Testament ones, and then it also pulled up all the New Testament ones. So if somebody figures out how to do that in Logos, that's how you want it default set up, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for places where similar words are used in both the New Testament and the Old Testament. And so either you have to do it by, going down here and looking. There is a way where you can link resources together. So like I have my analytical key combined with Zerwick. And so if I go to John, you see how that changed, but it also changed the ACOT to Zerwick. And then when I go back, see how it converted ACOT to Zerwick. You do that by linking the text. So it may be if you linked the Septuagint to the Greek New Testament and treated it as one resource, it may be that it would look all of them up. But I've never been able to find it, and it's just frustrating because the previous software package that we all used was BibleWorks, and BibleWorks did it automatically. And when Logos put BibleWorks out of business and even hired some of their developers, I would have thought that resource would have come in, but I've never been able to find. There has to be a way to do it. I don't know how to do it. So, but the long and short of it is there is going to be a connection between blessed is the man and then Jesus' use of this same word. Blessed are those, his 8 Beatitudes. Question?
David, with that, maybe I missed that to run to the bathroom really quick. What was you said the one from Psalm 1 was plural, was singular, and the one from Matthew 5 was plural. Was there something you were trying to say with that?
Yeah. Well, it's a point we're about to get into. But the one at the end of Psalm 2 blessed are all those having trusted on him. That's verbatim. Like, it's the same form, it's the same gender. It's verbatim the same as the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, the 8 blessed are in Matthew 5. So I want us to look at something here, and if what we're doing is walking around a museum and looking at stuff, what I'm about to say might make you a little mad. Give me the benefit of the doubt for 5 minutes, if you will. And I'm going to say something, and I want you to be a Berean, and you decide whether what I'm saying is right. Did you know that there's a debate in Psalm 1:1 how to exactly translate the verses? And so give me 5 minutes. I think this is going to end up at a really beautiful place. Give me 5 minutes if you can do that. So I'm saying there may be a translation problem. And you say, well, prove that to me. Okay. We're going to go through all the major translations. You tell me when something strikes you as interesting or significant. Blessed is the man who walks. Blessed is, or does not walk. Does not walk. Blessed is the man who does not walk. NLT, oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice. Blessed is the man that walketh not. Blessed is the man that walketh not. Blessed is the man that walketh not. God blesses those people who refuse evil advice. Blessed is the man who hath not walked.
The tenses are getting comical here.
Yes, the tenses are different. Blessed is the person who does not. Happy are those who reject. Blessed is the man that walketh not. Blessed is the one who does not follow. Happy are those who don't listen. Happy the man who did not walk. That's a New English translation of the Septuagint. Blessed is the one who obeys. Blessed who does not walk. New King James, who walks not. Who do not. What delight comes to those who follow God's ways? Blessed is the man who walks not. Blessed is the man who walks not. Blessed is the man who has not walked. Whatever this, that's another translation. Blessed is the man who has not. What's the translation difference?
If somebody is blessed because they haven't walked, then I'm not blessed. And if somebody is blessed because they aren't going to walk, that's still not me.
But the second one, blessed is the man who does not walk.
Yeah.
That has hope that might apply to me, doesn't it? But if you do it past tense, blessed is the man who has not walked.
it, if you read it that way, could that be then pointing towards the one who's talked about in Psalm 2, the anointed one?
My heart just grew so warm. There's a huge difference, is there not, between the tense of that verb? If it's blessed is the man who does not walk, then I have the hope that that might apply to me. But if the proper translation is blessed is the man who did not walk, there's no way this verse applies to me. Now, have you ever heard ministers celebrating that they don't really read Greek and Hebrew anymore? It's almost a badge of honor to say, oh, I never pick up Greek and Hebrew.
Yes, I have. It's not very doesn't really make you want to gut it out.
Because the underlying assumption is nothing good will come from time that you ever spent in Hebrew or Greek. If you spend time in Hebrew or Greek, you're just going to end up being this techno-Jeet, and you're never going to bless people. Spend your time in more practical things. I want to say that is hogwash. You and I may be as close as some people ever get to the Greek or Hebrew Bible. Our wrestling, our exegesis may be as close as some people ever get. And if you're a doctor and your careful study of medical journals might give you the ability to help someone in dire straits, is that time you study as a doctor going to be wasted time, or is it going to be the most important thing in the world to the person who's in your office and who's sick? I think modern translations of Psalm 1 are in error. I do not think the text says, blessed is the man who does not. I think the text says, blessed is the man who did not. And I just want to point out some things to you. What tense is the verb halak? Is it a perfect? Is it a participle? Is it an imperfect?
It's perfect. It's completed action.
It's completed.
Walked.
It's walked. When you look at the totality of the person's life, what you say about the totality of the person's life is that person has never walked in the counsel of the wicked. Is this one perfect, imperfect, or a participle?
Isn't it Cal perfect?
It's a cal perfect, and a perfect tells you the action is what?
Completed.
Completed. So the totality of the person's life is never having stood. What about this one? Yashav, perfect, participle, or imperfect?
Perfect again.
Completed action, the totality of the person's life is that they've never. This one, on the Torah, he yigeh, perfect, imperfect, or participle. The performative probably gives it away.
Imperfect.
Which imperfect is what? Completed action or incompleted action?
Ongoing.
Incompleted.
So this person is constantly chewing on, meditating day and night. He will be like the tree planted by the streams of water. Do you hear the Genesis 1 language?
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed.
This person is going to be like the tree of life, right? Whatever he does, his fruit he gives in his season. I mean, that's almost what Ezekiel 47 is going to describe, this tree growing over the tree of, the river of life. This person's going to be like a tree that his life, his leaf does not wither. That's verbatim the tree of life in one. It's also verbatim, I think it's like Jeremiah, I think it's 4, where it talks about God being the tree of life. Whatever he does, he prospers. Now I want to ask you a question. We're told this is David's prayer, end of Psalm 72. It's David's prayer. David prayed this. Is this true of David?
No, sir.
How do you know it's not true of David?
We have accounts from the historical books of him falling into great sin.
Great sin. Was he meditating on the Torah of God as he peered on a naked woman's body of his good friend who was out of town? Was he meditating on God's Torah when he did that?
Mm-hmm.
If you ask his daughter Tamar, who because of her father's sin ended up getting raped by her own brother, would Tamar say whatever he did prospered? Would Tamar say, oh, Dad's life was like a tree of life and just brought nothing but good into our lives? This text is not about David. And I know it's not about David because when David ordered the Psalter and he put Psalm 3 at the very first psalm that has his name on it, what is Psalm 3 about? Oh, let me move myself out of the way.
When he cries out to God when he's fleeing from Absalom.
And why did he flee from Absalom?
Because Absalom stole the heart of the people away from him.
Right. And why did Absalom steal the heart of his people? And didn't Absalom end up taking his father's concubines to the roof and in the presence of all Israel sleep with his father's concubines? Why did he do that?
He usurped his father's throne to become king.
Right. But why did God allow that? We're told, Nathan tells us why God allowed that.
Yeah, because he had name and kill.
Yeah, he had done it in secret, and God said, I'm going to have it done. You know, you covered up, but you brought sin and misery.
Right, I'm listening.
Yeah. So when it says the man who has not sat, stood, or walked, the man who constantly, day and night, meditates on the Torah, did David think David was that man? No. And if he isn't that man in Psalm 1, did David think he was the Messiah in Psalm 2? No.
Dr. Davis.
Yes.
There's very similar language in Jeremiah 17:7-8, but interestingly, when it's describing the man who trusts in the Lord and is blessed, who is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream, noticeably in all of those actions, they're all in the imperfect.
Yeah.
So you have the same language, but it's not the same language.
Well, similar ideas.
But it doesn't apply in this. It's not perfected. It's not. It's clearly applying to like us. It's not applying to an anointed one, the Messiah.
Right.
So I wonder if it's, to your point, it seems like they translated this correctly in the spirit of, it within the same resources. I guess they've got ACOT and the Hebrew Bible opened up. Like here, the way it's translated matches the perfect or imperfect, but it doesn't match in the translation of the Psalm that we're looking at.
Does that make you mad?
It's odd. Hard to be mad at something that I probably couldn't do.
Yeah.
It's easy to be a critic. It's hard to make a movie.
That's exactly right. Let me give you some advice how you might tackle something like this. You want to always work it so that people have confidence in their translation of Scripture. You want to never, ever preach in a way where someone says, I can't trust my Bible. But you do want to do this, and I'm going to ask you a question, and you tell me the answer. And we're going to talk about the Westminster Confession of Faith because it's going to touch on this. Between this text and this text, which one of those texts can Christians change? Which of those texts stands engraved in stone forever in heaven, verbatim, word for word?
The original language.
The original language. If I have two texts, and this is the way you want to do it, when you have a translation problem where maybe you favor one translation over the other, this is the way you want to do it. Find the two most trusted this one actually isn't making my point. This one will make it. Find two trusted translations, and you want to get the two most prominent ones. So if like you've got a difference between the NIV and the KJV and you're going to argue for one over the other, what you want to do is put both those trusted texts up at the same time. So I've done this. I wish I could find a better one than this, but I pulled up the New English translation of the Septuagint. So I've got, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, and I've got happy the man who did not walk in the counsel. And then I can ask a question. Which one of those translations more accurately reflects this text? Now, the Westminster Confession says it this way. It says, on most matters, the text is so clear and the translations are so clear that any translation will accurately reflect enough language so that the people of God can understand exactly what God's saying. But then the Westminster Confession says this: on matters of debate, recourse must be made to the best manuscripts and the original language. So what you want to do for people, if you can find a way to show, hey, there is a place where translations differ, then you ask the question, which one of these translations best reflects what appears in the original text? And this is the way you want to say this. If you're disagreeing with the ESV, which I'm disagreeing with it here, you want to say something like this: I love the ESV. The ESV is the English translation I go to when I study the Bible. I respect the ESV. The ESV is so good, but on this point, I have a lover's quarrel with the ESV. So what you're doing is saying the Bible is trustworthy, but on this particular point, I want to go with a different translation. And what you want to work people toward is, if you can show that major translations differ, then you want the people to say, I insist on having the best English translation at every place for every word. And so where major translations differ, as a Christian, I want to go to those translations and see which one has the best right. Now, if I were a pastor preaching this, what I would do is I would defend the ESV translation. And this is how I would do it. The ESV translation is the consensus translation. The ESV, NIV, NASB, New King James, all go with does not walk. The problem is all the ancient translations, the Greek translation, the Latin translation, the Vulgate, all those translations go with blessed is the man who did not walk. So here's a place where major translations differ. If I were on the committee that put together the translation, I would call this an atemporal perfect or a timeless perfect. And if I did it, then you can translate it, blessed is the man who walks not. That isn't the easiest way to convey that idea. You could do it with a participle, but it's certainly a possible translation. It's not that the ESV is given an impossible translation. It's just not the ancient translation. I would defend the one to the best of my ability that I did not believe correct, and then I would say, this is why I think the ancient translations may be right. I think that David in his prayers, this is part of his prayers, and his placing of Psalm 3 wants us to know that he's not the blessed man. He isn't like a tree of life. He did not bring nothing but blessing. And the book of Samuel shows us that. And, before the David and Bathsheba, it is nothing but victory and conquering. After the David and Bathsheba, it is nothing but misery David is not the blessed man. He isn't the tree of life. And therefore, David did not believe himself to be the Messiah of Psalm 2. And, well, let me just stop there. Tell me about how that strikes you. Do you think that's a fair balance of trust your Bible, but on places where translations differ, insist on following the exact thing that that the best manuscripts of the original text say? How did it strike you what I just presented?
I had a question while you're doing that. Where would you find like the notes, like the translator's notes on why they translated it that way?
You would have to go to commentaries. And it's interesting that you should say that, because I remembered now the one that I would go to. If we do the passage guide, do you know whenever you're doing this, you can do the passage guide. It'll look up all the places, all the commentaries that you have. It will put them in order. You can arrange these the best way that it suits you. Because I've done this before, I think it may be this is the one that I would print in the bulletin. So this is the Word Bible commentary. Blessed is the man who has not walked and has not stood and has not sat. And so that's how I would do it. I would put the ESV up, and then I would put the most authoritative thing in the life of the people in the church, which I would probably start here. This is standard. But then I would say the way this man has translated it is the exact way that the Septuagint translated it. It's the exact way that Jerome translated it in the Vulgate. Jerome revised the Vulgate in a thing called the Iuxta Hebraeus. I'm pretty sure he goes with the past tense. I'm operating from memory here, but I think the Aramaic Targum goes with the past tense. And so I would say there's a huge debate among competent Hebraists. Is this who does not walk, or is it did not? And if I were preaching this, I would ask the congregation, if, I would say it this way, if it's did not walk, are you feeling hopeful right now? Blessed is the man who's the entirety of his life, he has never done that. Do you feel hopeful right now? And be honest. Do you feel like if Jesus said, hey, we're going to throw up a YouTube video and it's going to be kind of a highlights of your life, we're just going to pick kind of an average summary of who you are as a person, and we're going to let it run for the next 55 minutes. Would you be sitting on the front row, or would you be heading toward the door looking for the bus to Canada and, dye your hair and change your name and never show your face in public? If it's did not, blessed is the man who did not, I don't have a hope in the world for that applying to me.
Have you come across a commentary or a translation that has it as did not?
This one, the Word Bible commentary, that's a standard, and then he's probably going to tell us why. Sometimes the Word Bible will tell you in a footnote, so it may be It doesn't look like he's telling us why, but I mean, I can tell you in Hebrew that's a perfect, and a perfect points to a completed action. And it's very difficult to make the perfect, the present continual. I'm sure some scholar has argued for that, but it seems very unlikely. But hey, I'm accustomed to taking a Christocentric view, so I'm exactly where Wesley is. Like, this psalm isn't about me. This psalm is about Jesus. Jesus is the man who is the tree of life. And
this one has this. That's what Augustine agrees with you.
well, he's really a bad exegete, and when you're siding with Augustine, that just shows you're not a very good Bible reader, right? Because his works have only been reprinted for how many years now? 1,600 years?
Blessed is the man that hath not gone away in the counsel of the ungodly. This is to be understood of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord man. That's awesome.
So if I were preaching this, you better believe I'm going to put that up on a PowerPoint slide.
Putting that one in the chamber.
What's that?
Putting that one in the chamber.
Yeah, because, do you want your sermon to be moralistic? Blessed is the man who does not walk. Hey, you just need to go and double down and resolve. Just put it on cards, have it on the mirror, just double down. Or do you want to be the kind of person who says, blessed are the spiritually bankrupt? If this depends on me, I will do exactly what David did. I will ruin my life. I will ruin my family's life. I will bring misery. I will not be the tree of life, but the gospel is Jesus has been the perfect one in my stead. He has followed the law. He meditated on God's Torah day and night. He said no to sin, and his life has made it so that God's blessing can come to me. Which one of those messages do you want to preach to your people? Because I don't want to preach the first one. I want to preach the last one. The last one is what the text says, in my humble opinion, in Hebrew. It's a perfect. It is an action that's completed. The totality of the person's life is having not walked in the counsel of the wicked. Now, there's something really weird. Let me look at my time here. When I took Hebrew, at the University of Georgia. I think it was 1984 when I took Hebrew. And the person who taught me Hebrew was a young scholar named Gerald Wilson. I think it was Gerald Wilson's first job, like the first year he went on to become the world's expert on editing the Psalter. When he taught me, he was kind of a nobody. He had gone to Yale, but he wrote a book called The Editing of the Psalter. Every person who does work on the Psalms quotes Wilson's book because, like, he's this guru. It was so sweet when I graduated from UGA. Graduation, they let the professors come out and find people to sit by. There 5,000 of us graduated. We were there on the UGA football stadium thing, and we filled up the whole, football field with graduates. And Gerald Wilson found me and sat next to me. So it's like, here's this guy who, when it happened, he was nobody. He went on to become like the world's expert in editing the Psalter. Gerald Wilson points out in 2:12, well, let me read it And you tell me what you find interesting about this. It says, serve the Lord with fear. Rejoice before him in trembling. Kiss the Son, or kiss the Pure One, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. Who is the he here? Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. Who is the he?
The Son?
The Son.
It has to be the Son, right? Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. Because his wrath is kindled in a moment. Who is the his? Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. Because his anger is kindled in a moment. Who is the his of his anger?
Couldn't all these hises also correspond to the king above the sun? So the Lord himself? Does that make sense?
Well, I think you're onto something, Colin. But it's the his is the Son still, right? Lest he be angry and you perish in the way, because his wrath is kindled in a moment. Blessed are those taking refuge in him. Who is the him? Just grammatically. Who is the antecedent of all three of those
The Son.
pronouns? The Son. Now, this is what Gerald Wilson said, and he died very young. I think he was 53 when he died. He said grammatically, the he there grammatically should be the Son. But this is what Gerald Wilson said. It can't be the Son because the entirety of the rest of the Psalter says over and over, do not take refuge in men, take refuge in God. And if the blessed are those who take refuge in him is applied to the Messiah, then you would have people taking refuge in a man. And the entirety of the rest of the Psalter says don't do that, take refuge in God. Now, since Wilson has died, people have pushed back a little and said that the entire Psalters actually starts off, and here, let me do a hand gesture here. You start off with belief in the Messiah and the Lord, but what you have by the time you get to book 5 is those two figures have been merged, and it's trusting. You don't have the separation between the Lord and the anointed. You just have this hope of God's people. What if David, by the power of the Holy Spirit, saw that? What if the blessed man of Genesis 1:1 is the Messiah of Genesis 1, blessed man of Psalm 1:1 is the Messiah, blessed man who is the tree of life in Psalm 1:1 is the Messiah of Psalm 2, and what if David realized that he wasn't that son? Ask of me and I'll give the nations as your inheritance, the very end of it. Was that true of David? No. Was David a tree of life to his family? No. Remember how we got on this whole thing, the Aramaic? Can you think of anywhere in the Bible where you have an Aramaic section that merges someone who's called the bar with the I'm thinking maybe Daniel 7, 13, and 14, in the Ancient of Days. And does Jesus quote that passage and apply that passage to himself? And what does the high priest say when Jesus applies? He actually takes Psalm 110:1 and he joins it. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right. Adonai said to Adonai, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. And then he said, you will see. And Mark's version of this, Jesus actually has the word ego eimi, I am, ego eimi. Like, that's a tetragrammaton, virtually the tetragrammaton replacement. And you will see the bar nishah, the bar coming. And what does the one who's seated on the throne say? That all the nations, oh wow, that's the same word that's like what will all the nations do to the bar nishah? It says they will serve him. They will, I think in Greek it's translated they will worshipfully serve him. Are you supposed to worshipfully serve anybody but God? And Jesus is saying, is Adonai in Psalm 110 Solomon? Well, if it's Solomon, how does David call his own son Adonai? Jesus is making the point, it's not Solomon. It was never Solomon. And Psalm 2 was never David. And Gerald Wilson was wrong. The grammar demands taking refuge in the Messiah, but because the Messiah is the Son of God, you are taking refuge in God the Son. It was never about David. David knew it wasn't about David. And that's why I think we should translate it, blessed is the man who did not. But man, you've got a lot of work before you to make that point, do you not? And you have to come up with a way that's going to leave people confident with their scriptures. And I would use the Augustine quote. I'm pretty sure Spurgeon has a similar quote. He's got, I would use this word Bible. I would use the Septuagint. But when you're doing the history of interpretation, I think you should work through the text and stand on your own 2 feet. But I think you should check and see what other people say. This is a really good commentary series. It's called, it's a commentary series that be helpful if I pull this up. I don't know why it's not. Oh, there it goes. it's called Bible Through the Centuries, and it's fairly recent. I was teaching a class on Isaiah for Bryan College, and I bought the Isaiah one. Why it's so good is in like 5 minutes, it will give you a history of the entire interpretation of this psalm in all people throughout all time. It's very concise. It will tell you what everybody said. This is a resource where in 5 or 10 minutes you can do what took me in doctoral work 3 weeks to do, a history of interpretation. This commentary set is so good, I bought the whole thing. It was like $1,000 to get all of them. I use these all the time. If you're near a college campus, more than likely the college library will have this resource. So if you're near some kind of research library, maybe you wouldn't have to buy it. If you're not near, then I would suggest if you're preaching through a text, buy one at a time.
What's it called again?
It's called the Wiley Blackwell, and it's Through the Centuries commentary. But Wiley Blackwell is the publisher, and whatever the book name is, so this is Psalms Through the Century, Isaiah Through the Centuries, and what it is a reception history commentary on Psalm 1 to 72. And so what they're doing is they're not trying to argue this is what the psalm means. They're only trying to tell you what other people have taken the psalm to mean. And so they do that for every single book of the Bible. They're not all published yet, but like John's published, Acts, I think Romans, Isaiah is published. I think Daniel, Psalms is published.
Is that similar to the ancient Christian?
It is. It's
whatever that's called.
The ancient Christian commentary on Scripture does the same thing up to about 800 AD. So this one does from 0 to now, but this one also does things like movies. If a movie interprets a passage, a book. This one also does artwork. So if there's artwork in the passage, often they'll put it there.
Wow.
And they do it in chronological order, and they do it with the heavyweights. So they're telling you that 4Q174 at Qumran treats Psalm 1 and 2 as one psalm. Justin Martyr, in his first apology, discusses exegesis and talks about Christ crucified on a tree. Hippolytus of Rome, Barakot, that's the Babylonian Talmud, Midrash. This is the Midrash on the Psalms. Points out that the prayers of David, I disagree. They're taking the prayers of David as starting. I think it's the prayers end. Who is the blessed man? Psalm 1 is the latest psalm of the Psalter. It links it with earlier texts. Primary relationship with Psalm 2. This is a point we noticed. Describes God sitting enthroned, and the use of Haggah to revive, murmuring on God's law. The Septuagint translation, at least one shift in theology is visible, an emphasis on the future eschatological hope. The Targum Psalms has blessed is a man who does not walk nor sit at table in the company. That's interesting. I thought the Targum goes with past tense, but I would have to look at that. Who is the blessed man? Blessed are thou, O true Israel. Rashi, he's a Jewish heavyweight, reads the first psalm in light of the entire Psalter. We were doing that. So they're interpreting of Abraham. Kimchi is a Jewish heavyweight. Jerome, Epistle of Barnabas, Dialogue with Trypho. These are all major. Origen read Psalm 1 in a prosopological way, and somebody's going to ask me a great question. A prosopological way. What's your question? Have you ever heard that word before?
What does that mean?
What is it?
It's the word face in Greek, and it's where you understand the psalm to be voicing the voice of another person. David wrote it, but he's using the voice of someone else. This is going to be the standard Christological, whereby one voice is Christ identifying our humanity and the other Christ is vindicating his church. Augustine, we find another Christian reading, first to identify Christ as the blessed man. Can you see how utterly valuable this commentary is on this psalm? This commentary set, and see that go all the way into the Reformation, Luther, Calvin. I mean, 20 minutes, you could understand the entire history of interpretation. Oh, wow. Here's where I would go. This is Book of Common Worship in the Anglican Church. Blessed are they who have not walked. Might not be so off base after all in pressing the past tense.
Wait. You go back up, that's the word that we looked up earlier in Greek.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And even if we went to, if I were putting a church service together, I would probably have the New Testament reading from Matthew 5. Blessed are the spiritually bankrupt. And I would say it like this. If Psalm 1 is the Torah door to the Psalter, Psalm 2 is the prophetic door. Those two doors together, when they open up, give us an entryway to the psalm. Notice that David, recognizing his own sin in Psalm 3, the most important thing to him was to say, I'm not that blessed man. I'm not the tree of life. I'm not the guy who never meditated on anything but the Torah. But here's the good news. Our Messiah has. How can spiritually bankrupt people be blessed? They can be blessed because they're taking refuge in the Messiah. Blessed is he whose sins are forgiven. David understood that. The argument for a Christocentric reading, I think, is much more powerful, but it's only when we look at the tense and go with the perfect being a completed action. where the totality of the person's life. This is actually a very long. Oh, this is interesting. Evidently, Marc Chagall has a painting of Psalm 1. So that Bible commentary through the centuries, I put that series as the first one that comes up. Perone is an older commentary. I learned to trust him when I was doing my tenure paper, the Ancient Christian Commentary on Scripture. That's always a good one to consult. Luther, if you have access, he's usually good. When I get in a pinch, like just can't understand, I usually end up with Gil. He's usually good about things. He's free on the internet too, so you don't have to buy him. I just use him so much. I bought him just for the convenient. Word Bible Commentary is kind of the standard evangelical scholarly. The ICC is the standard higher critical one. Reformation Commentary on Scriptures, collection of all the people in the Reformation. Kidner is really good on the Psalms. There's a guy, what's his name? Alex Moitier. I don't know how you say his name. He's really good on the Psalms. So if I were doing a Psalm paper, I would go through, I'd make up my own mind. I would argue for the position, then I would start to check, see what other people had said. I think the fact that so many of the ancient interpretations go with the past tense puts me on good ground. The fact that the Word Bible Commentary does and that Augustine, I would be comfortable to do an exegesis paper before Presbytery on that. And I think the power of a Christocentric approach to Psalm 1 and 2, I think, is delightful for the people. I'd be very careful at how I presented that, where I did it in a way that draws people into study. Often I tell students at Bryan, if you get to a place where major commentaries differ, get 4 or 5 or 6 of the best commentaries, the best translations, and compare them and see where they take you. So that would be my advice for that. Questions, comments? I've invited you into kind of my cabinet shop, how I do things. You may not entirely do it the way I do it, but I think you're seeing kind of how I do it or how I approach it. Questions or commentaries on that?
Dr. Davis, I noticed on the syllabus that there's comments about a papal, and you've mentioned it a couple of times. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so most of you, or many of you, if you're seeking ordination in the PCA, you have to write an exegetical paper, and so I wanted you to give an opportunity in this class to start that exegetical paper. You can do it on any passage that we study. You can do it on a different passage. What I want you to do is to demonstrate some of the tools that we've learned. If you chose to write your exegetical paper on this passage, you would probably use some of the tools that we looked at tonight, translation, comparisons, commentary work. You would pick out a significant thing to argue. Maybe you argue the tense of Psalm 1:1, or maybe you pick out the blessed of Psalm 1 and then 2:12, and you write kind of what's the support of what's going to be the sermon one day that you preach. That's what Presbytery wants you to demonstrate. And they want you to show that you know how to do a word study, you know how to compare translations and do commentary work. And I forgot how long it needs to be, whatever the
I think it's 12 is what it says. 12 to 15. I don't remember for sure though.
Yeah. You don't have to do this, but I tell you, when I get to a place where I'm stuck, I end up doing this. Like, I go through word for word and I start comparing ancient translations.
How do you do
What's that?
that? How did you get to that? Is that on Logos or?
No, this is something that I made.
Oh.
I just do this whenever I get stuck. Like, I just put like the Hebrew and like the Septuagint, and if I'm doing it for other people, I'll get the English translations and do it too. But I usually start off with this and just compare. And I think the Targum goes with the past tense too. And my Syriac isn't real good, so I don't know. I usually have to go to an official translation to get help in that one, but I know this one, blesses the man who has not. And this one, which is Jerome, after he learned how to read Hebrew, he does blesses the man who has not. And I mean, if you got Jerome and the Septuagint, and if the Targum does it too, I would be able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, this text should be translated, blesses the man who has not. If I were on the committee, I would argue tooth and nail, because it makes it very easy to interpret this as a Christocentric. The other thing that I like to do when I'm trying to understand something is I do these exegetical outlines. Walt Kaiser and Murray Harris showed us how to do this when I was at Trinity. And basically, you just line things up in a way that grammatically makes sense. And you see, this is perfect, blesses man who has not stood. And I put footnotes, like the New English translation of the Septuagint, happy the man who did not walk. What is the tense of the verb? Oh, here's the Septuagint. Blessed is... Yes, the Peshitta does it, who has not walked. And that guy Taylor is like the official Syriac guru. So the fact that he did it, has not walked, man, I'm certain that's the way. Oh, and evidently the Anchor Bible also does the past tense. Oh, and Aquila did the past tense. Symmachus did the past. Oh, yeah, I'm certain it should be past tense. And then at the end, what I do after I do the exegetical outline is I start collecting commentary, because I know I'm going to get pushback from people. People say, "Oh, you're doing that Christocentric, and you do that too much," and I want to say you do too little. Oh, remember we talked about Paleo Hebrew? That's what Paleo Hebrew looks like.
Oh, goodness.
So That's the Paleo Hebrew of 212. Then I do this. This is what I would give out, like if I were doing this in a teaching thing. Who walks not, does not walk, and then do the ancient ones. Who did not, has not. Sorry, I kind of get carried away with stuff. But the shortest pencil's better than the longest memory, is what I say. Kiss the Son, so this is talking about the Aramaic probably. Perone, subject of the verb may be the Lord. Do homage, offer pure homage. This is what Luther says about kiss the Son. Revelation, we didn't even get into that. We should have. Moitier does. Blessed is the man who has determined not to walk. Spurgeon says, I have been introduced to embrace the opinion of some among the ancient interpreters. I put this on a slide as well, who conceive that the first psalm is intended to be descriptive of the character and reward of the just one, the Lord Jesus.
That's interesting because I pulled up the Treasury of David commentary and I didn't see that. So where did that come from?
It should be the Treasury of David, and it's, you know how he quotes other people? He's quoting John Fry there. So it's in the, he's got two sections in that commentary, kind of his thoughts and then other people's thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be the other people's thoughts there.
They got the wrong one.
Hey, I see our time has run out. Do you see what we did tonight? This is my shameless begging, pleading, cajoling. Studying the Hebrew is actually very practical. I think it gives you some pretty powerful ideas with this psalm. If you're coming into my cabinet shop, you don't have to build a cabinet the exact same way, but you may want to use some of the same tools I use. So this is what we're going to do. I see our time has run out. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for your hard work. And I will look forward to talking to you again next time. Yeah, just email to me. All right. I'll see you guys.